You're listening to Building the Broncos with Nick Kendell and Carl Dumler, Broncos country's leading draft and scouting analysts. Get on over to milehighhuddle.com to sound off on all things Broncos.
Hello there, Broncos country, and it is once again time for another episode of Building the Broncos. I am your host, Carl Dumler, and with me as always, I have my co-host and good friend, Mr. Nick Kendell. Nick, not a good weekend for us in football, was it?
Or baseball even. Like, things are just going downhill quick for all of my favorite sports teams. I know, congratulations to you Denver-based listeners out there. The Colorado Rockies look like they're going to kick yours and my St. Louis Cardinals out of the playoffs. The Cardinals got the one more game against the Brewers. Looked like they're about to be swept. Brewers are on fire. And then they got games against the Cubs. So Cardinals had, I think, the second toughest schedule in the last month of the season, and they're a young team, so it's showing. But they really need to go steal that Nolan Arenado guy from the Rockies, or even Story too. I'd take both of them. They need a shortstop and third base. So if you guys want to send those guys over, that would be great. Let's take down the common enemy, the Chicago Cubs and the Dodgers. Either one, both those teams, on my opinion. And football. I don't want to talk about the Broncos game. I was expecting them to get beat, as you saw last week. I wasn't expecting it to look so much like 2016 and 17, but the Hawkeye game, that's going to sting for a bit, because the Hawks, I fully believe, are a more talented team than Wisconsin. But losing the turnover battle by 3 and 2 special teams turnovers on punts, you're going to lose football games that way.
That you will, and Bronco fans should know all too well what bad special teams play can do to you. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But hey, it's a new week. That's the great thing about football, is you can kind of shake it off and move on. And that's what we're going to do here with the Building the Broncos podcast. We want to let you know that Building the Broncos focuses all things pertain to your Denver Broncos as relates to the NFL draft, to team building, and of course, scouting the upcoming opponent. With Nick and myself being armchair GMs, we will be bringing you fresh insight and analysis each and every week in every single episode, from scouting the enemy, player values, scheme and personnel fits, and a little general football-related banter. You can follow myself on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH, as well as follow Nick at Nick Kendell MHH. Be sure to tweet us any questions or opinions you have, because we live for talking Bronco football. You can also follow the podcast Twitter account at HuddleUpPod. Make sure you check out ours and our co-writers' written content at milehighhuddle.com, a part of 24/7 Sports and an affiliate of the CBS Sports Digital Network. We know you listeners are as football, draft, and Bronco crazy as we are, so please give us a click and subscribe to us on iTunes as well as Stitcher. And don't forget to share us on Facebook and Twitter. We wouldn't be here today without you listeners, so as a call to action, please go take the time and go to iTunes or Spreaker to rate and subscribe to let your voices be heard on how you enjoy the show. Now, before we get going, we first want to say thank you to our great sponsor, Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/huddleup. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Again, that's www.audibletrial.com/huddleup. Well, for you listeners out there, we're going to be doing something a little bit different today, where we kind of rearrange the order of how we're going to do our show. And we're going to start with what we did I guess last week we did a 6-pack of facts from the game. But this week we're going to start with the stock report and our stock up, stock down, which players we really were impressed by, and just kind of go from there. But I'll let you know what all we're going to be doing. But we're excited because we're going to be very much focused on the upcoming opponent and trying to give you as much insight as you can, so when you get to the game and you start watching things, you can sit there and say, hey, I already knew that was going to happen. And that's what we're here for. And so we're going to start, though, with here's some stock up, stock down from the game. And my 3 from this past game, I have to say, Connor McGovern has been downright impressive. I would say he is the best guard on our team, which is crazy to say. And I mean,
I thought he was up and down. Yeah, I thought he had a couple penalties, and his run blocking was good, but I still think his pass blocking needs some work.
Oh, it needs some work. I'll agree with that. But he is further along than I thought he would be this season.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be that one guy that you're like, oh, I don't know what he's going to be this year. And he's really proven himself to be one of the more consistent guys on the offensive line. Then I'm going to go with Joe Jones. This guy is probably not getting a lot of love, but he should, because he contributed to quite a few of our points this past game. Just his special teams ability. He was flying all over the place. I know there's a lot of people that were very much against the Broncos keeping 6 linebackers on this team, but there's a good reason they kept this guy because he is becoming a special team star for them very, very quickly. And my final one is a guy that kind of redeemed himself a little bit. The offense couldn't get going, but this guy wasn't part of the problem, and it was Demaryius Thomas. He had much better hands, much better route running, seemed a lot more engaged in the game. And so very, very good to see him bounce back just a little bit, but still need more from him, especially in this upcoming game because, oh boy, this is going to be a doozy of a game, that's for sure. So who are your 3?
My 3 for the stock up, I have Royce Freeman, number 1 listed here. He did pretty well when Philip Lindsay was ejected for kind of a bogus jab, and Freeman showed me not only, the ability to run between the tackles, which we've seen a few times, but his pass protection. There was, I think, 3 reps where I was like, man, that is impressive. So that was exciting. And I think he also, showed as a pass catcher as well. Not as much as Booker. I mean, Booker's still out there, and Booker made some good plays as a receiver. They're using all 3, and I really got no complaints about how they're using the running backs right now. The running game is one of the very few things I'm not going to complain about from this team. But Royce Freeman, I think probably one of his better games so far, and found the end zone as well. That was a great play call, great run, and I'm looking forward to seeing more Royce Freeman going forward with this run game. Number 2, Bradley Chubb. He had that sack early on. He was getting pressures. He was doing a great job in run defense, and honestly, I think it was his best performance to date as a Denver Bronco, and I'm looking forward to see him playing better and better each and every week. I still don't think, some people, I think it was Louis Riddick, said that he was a better prospect than Myles Garrett. Agree to disagree there, but Bradley Chubb's a more refined player, but he doesn't have those high-end athletic tools that guys like Mack, Clowney, Vaughn, and Garrett had. But Bradley Chubb, he is the absolute perfect Robin to Vaughn's Batman. So excited to see him playing better and better every week and just learning the craft out there. And those two together for the next, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it's going to be, the Vaughn and Chubb, it's going to be great. And I'm excited to see that. And then Adam Gotsis, man, he had one of his better games, I think, of the season as well. I don't believe he registered a sack, but he was doing a great job that attacking the football, rushing the passer. And I think he does a great job every single game. You notice this as well, but Gotsis, if he doesn't get into the backfield in the pass play, he does a great job watching the quarterback and getting his hands up in the pass lane and batting balls down. So beautiful play by him, and that Broncos, the defensive front and the offensive front and the running backs, probably the only areas of that game that I took away thinking they did a pretty good job.
And that batting the balls down thing, that's going to be big this week. Just to give you a little hint of future conversation here. Who do you have for your stock down then?
So for my stock down, number 1, I did a film piece this week, and I was pretty disappointed. I think people are writing him a little hard. I know Mark Schlereth definitely knows more about the offensive line than I do, but I feel like it's a little bit just an overreaction. But it's Garrett Bowles. He did struggle this week, but I thought the first 2 weeks he played pretty well. He just it spiraled out of control this week. So it's honestly more of a trusting his technique and mental toughness kind of thing going for me with him. So we'll hopefully see that continue. Not continue. We'll hopefully see him bounce back this week and play better. But man, that was a rough game for him, and he's got to learn not to hold and trust his technique. He's a good athlete out there. You got to be able to fall back on that technique, repetitive motion, everything like that, muscle memory, and it just didn't happen. Terrell Suggs got in his head. So, and he got kind of irritated. One of the media members asked him, "Oh, so Suggs got in your head?" And he's like, "I didn't say that," but it looked like Suggs was, giving him a hard time out there. And once it started to get harder for him, it was not good. So we'll see about that. Case Keenum, stock down again. Just inept. Not a great game. But there was some drop balls. I'll totally give him that. But he's got to be better. His red zone efficiency has just been bad. He's not pushing the ball very well. And he's honest. I think his statistics right now, through 3 games, a very small sample size, I'll give you that. But they're worse than what Trevor Siemian's were at this point last year. So Case Keenum, I was very skeptical when they signed him. That's why I still wanted to go after a quarterback with the 5th overall pick. And so far, he's making me, unfortunately, look right. So Case Keenum, stock down. And finally, Marquette King. If you're paying a punter all this money, he's got to do better than what King did this week. And the Broncos brought in a punter to compete, from the practice squad, and we'll see about that. But if you're paying this guy all that money, and with the I don't want to say distraction, but, all the flair that comes from it. I don't really want to hear my punter or my kicker chirping too much. I want them out there doing their job. Maybe I'm boring old school in that regard, but I can't have that if you're struggling. And right, so far, especially considering what he's getting paid to be a specialist, Marquette King's been a letdown, so stock down for me on him as well.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with any of those. I went with Cortland Sutton. His third down drop there where they were backed up and needing that first down to get out of the first half. Oh, my goodness. That was easy catch. Could have been a really big play for the Broncos if he gets by that one guy, and just can't have that. You got to be able to trust the rookie to get on the field, and he's a special talent. But that was really, really bad timing for him to not show how good his hands are. Bradley Roby is another one for me. It's not that he's playing absolutely terrible. It's just when the Broncos are used to a certain standard, and we've had the no-fly zone going. It was just announced today Talib is actually going on IR. Yep. So maybe the Broncos got out just in time. But still, you kind of expected Bradley Roby to take that next step, and he hasn't. He just really has not taken that next step for the Broncos.
I'm just irritated how soft he's been playing.
Yeah.
In coverage. Yeah, I understand that he's, not a big booming cornerback, but he's just been tissue soft in coverage and run support. You got to be a little bit more handsy. I'm okay even giving up a little bit of pass interference from time to time, but you got to have that mentality, and I'm just not seeing that right now.
I agree. And then my final one, I went back and forth whether to put this guy on here because it's not, like you said, it was a really ticky-tack call. But at the same time, I would say early in that game, you could tell the refs were going to be pretty ticky-tack on a lot of things. When they got Yadam for that call along the sideline on the kickoff return, that to me was kind of that big red siren going off of, hey, guys, get your head in the game right. Don't do anything stupid. But Philip Lindsay, like I said, it was ticky-tack, and I don't think he should have been kicked out. And they missed another Baltimore player that decided to dive on the play late. That should have been a penalty on them as well. There's just a lot of things that went wrong in that game, and the officials definitely didn't help. But just gotta be smarter of the situation and the refs that you have in the game, because some weeks they're going to be that way. They're going to be those ticky-tack kind of group. Other weeks they're going to let you about take each other's heads off and say, good play. So just kind of that more heads up kind of thing, because they really needed him. He has been that spark in the first 2 weeks, and to see him go out, that just really took the wind out of the sails of anything the Broncos had going. So, and it was just a whole terrible set of things going on there, because he had the touchdown that was called back on a stupid penalty. It was so bad. Let's just forget about that part right now. But anyway, those would be my three. But moving on to our next section, we're still trying to think of a name for this one. So give us some time here. But it's essentially this idea of we wanted to talk a little bit about things to improve on and things that the team needs to keep up. And it just it's this looking back at the past game, but also looking forward of what can they take from this game and what can they really look at to improve. And our first thing that they need to improve, obviously, is penalties. Like I just said with Philip Lindsay, you had him along the sideline. That gives him a short field. Block in the back from D'Amato Pecco. All those kind of things, those were big plays that were taken away.
They had almost as many penalty yards as rushing yards.
Right, yeah. That's ridiculous. Yeah. So Broncos have to clean things up. They've done some pretty stupid penalties so far. Offensive linemen, I've seen them do get holding calls when they're nowhere near the play.
Yeah.
I think, was it Matt Paradis that pretty much tackled a guy to the ground when he was like 15 yards away from the play?
Just mental awareness, intelligence, toughness, that whole shebang. Right. You can't have it. You got to play smart football. They didn't.
Right.
Yeah, moving it along. Red zone passing offense. I touched on it with Keenum, but I got some stats here. Read it in an article. Joe Rowe on Twitter. Good follow. Inside the Baltimore 30, Keenum went 2 for 5 for 13 yards with no first downs, 1 interception, and 1 sack. Keenum didn't do great, but his red zone efficiency as a passing right now has just been not good, and it's got to improve. You got to score. You got to come away with 7. Make it 3 even, but not 0 in the red zone. You just can't. You can't have it.
Yeah, it's a good one there. The next one, and this is something I'm very interested to follow this for the rest of the season. The coverage calls on the defense. I mean, when you have Chris Harris Jr. calling out the defensive coordinator for not calling a good game, that's a pretty big thing to say. You don't see a lot of players call out their coaches quite like that. And so right now, I think Joe Woods really is coaching for his job. If they get whooped by the Chiefs, I think he's done. Yeah. I really do. I do too. I know, I mean, Vance Joseph has called him out. Yep. And so now you got players calling him out, you got coaches calling him out. That's not a good combo. So this is a really big game for Joe Woods. He has to put together his best game plan that he's ever done. He's got to get creative. I think we'll get into the game plan. I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves on some of that. But and finally, Marquette King punting. That was 2017 kind of punting. You can't do that. Right. You said earlier, you pay this guy some money, you expect something good from him. So far, that's not been the case this year. Yep, I agree. And on the positive side, stuff to keep up, stuff to keep going for the next game. Running between the tackles, run game in general has been beautiful. You know, the Broncos are one of the best teams at running the football right now. And you think because how many stacked boxes they're going against, that wouldn't be the case. But, man, the running backs are doing great, and the run blocking's been pretty darn good. The pass blocking, hit or miss, but the run blocking, last year was a good run blocking unit too, but it's been really good, and the running backs are eating because of it. Run defense by the defensive line. They're doing a great job. Linebackers aren't trusting in. They're biting on coverage, biting on play action, but defensive line's been doing a good job in run defense. Wolf had a bunch of stuffs this weekend. Pecco played not as good as against the Raiders, but he had a good game, and Gotsis and Harris, all those guys playing good. Even Vaughn and Chubb, they didn't make Vaughn especially didn't have a great game as far as pass rushing. He was doubled and chipped constantly, but they all did a good job holding up against the run. So good job. And then special teams unit minus King, there's the penalty and whatnot, but you had the block kick, you had the block punt. You already touched on Joseph Jones, but special teams, the defense and the offense didn't do anything to really win this game besides, the run game on the offense. And special teams, I thought, did pretty good. So special teams outside of punting, keep it up. No penalties, obviously. I feel like every time there's a big play, not only in the Broncos, in the NFL at this point in special teams, there's a penalty calling it back. That's even in college football too. But, you got to clean it up. With special teams, I thought they had a pretty good game. Not the best, but not the worst, so keep it up. Now, Carl, ever since we started this podcast, people have been asking us for advice. Usually it's about this week's upcoming matchup, a draft prospect that fits the Broncos, or even which teams are going to win in this upcoming week. The truth is we don't know who's going to win, but if you think you got to check out MyBookie. Remember, who you are betting on is just as important as who you're betting with. That's why I always tell people to bet with MyBookie. Trust me, guys, they are the best bet this season. They've been in the business for years, have great reviews online, and their mobile site is easy to use. I would only recommend a service to my listeners that's been good to me. That's why I'm urging you to make your way to MyBookie. You win, they pay. MyBookie has been slammed with new bettors and wants to give everyone the best service possible. If you're willing to wait to deposit after 7 p.m. Eastern Time, they'll give you an additional $25 free to play on deposits over $100. You just have to use the promo code Broncos125. It's up to you guys, but I'd wait until after dinner to take that extra money. You play, you win, and you get paid. All right, well, moving on to the Kansas City Chiefs now for the last 30 to 40 minutes of the podcast. And we're going to give a good look over this roster here. And the Chiefs roster, one side of the ball, pretty darn good. It kind of bothers me to say it. I don't hate the Chiefs like I hate the Raiders or the Patriots. I have some family that are Chiefs fan. You live in Chiefs country, for crying out loud. So they're not the worst, and they have good barbecue. But, man, I am already tired of this Chiefs offense and Patrick Mahomes and the Kool-Aid man pulling the strings. But looking over this roster, across the board, man, the Chiefs offense is really pretty darn good. It sucks to say. You got to start talking about Patrick Mahomes. I think he's probably going to be a guy that's going to make John Elway a little bit quarterback envy this upcoming draft season, but I don't think anybody saw this coming from him. He has been slinging the rock across the yard, and he's not playing perfect by any means, but he set the NFL record for the most touchdown passes in three games, first 3 games of the season, that is, and he's on pace to break Peyton Manning's record. I don't think it's going to happen. If anybody wants to bet me on that, I'd be happy to take that. But he's been playing out of his mind, and the passing weapons are just incredible as well. Travis Kelce,
I think he's the best tight end in football right now, considering Gronk's age and injury history. Yeah, Kelsey, he's not the same jump ball weapon that Gronk is, the red zone type, but as far as the blocking ability compared with the ability to move him in and out, put him in the slot, and then his yak ability at tight end, Bronco fans should know pretty well. He's absolutely beat up on the Broncos the past few seasons. And this wide receiver group is crazy. Tyreek Hill gets all the credit because he's the fastest guy in the NFL, bar none. He's got just a different level of speed. I don't know if you remember in Madden a few years ago, you could edit the ratings on the players on the rosters, and the highest it would go for ratings, the number-wise, was 99. And then there was Devin Hester. And if you went to his, they gave him an additional 100. You couldn't edit anybody up to 100, but Devin Hester was 100. I think Tyreek Hill is at 102 right now. The dude is
easily
absolutely incredibly fast. It's unbelievable. It's horrifying. It changes the entire complexion of this Chiefs offense too. And unfortunately, Patrick Mahomes might have one of the top 4 or 5 arms in terms of velocity and deep ball that he can really utilize a guy like Tyreek Hill. Seriously, there's been throws. I watched 2 of these Chiefs games in depth, and there's some throws where I'm like, man, the only other player that I've seen make that throw consistently in the NFL is Aaron Rodgers, and that just makes me sick to my stomach. Sammy Watkins, they paid him great money. I think probably overpaid him, but when you have a quarterback on that rookie contract, guess what you can do, guys? You can pay these guys. It doesn't even matter because you got money out the wazoo. You're not paying a guy like Case Keenum $20 million a year. And then even behind those guys, I think people aren't really talking about the other weapons that the Chiefs have that really in preseason even. I remember watching Chiefs game in preseason. I was like, man, Chiefs got some wide receivers. Mm-hmm. Chris Conley, he got hurt last year, but he was a star at the combine before he came out, a 3rd-round pick from Georgia. He's got height, weight, speed. He had an impressive touchdown last week, and he can really stretch the field as well as all these guys can. Demarcus Robinson, a very talented guy. He was killer in preseason this season as well. I think he was injured last year, and he flashed some, but man, he's big body type, really fun. Unfortunately, not fun when you're going against him, but it just as far as an NFL talent, that's their 4th wide receiver. He's doing pretty darn well. And then they got their gadget guy in D'Anthony Thomas, who they've used, in gadget trick plays, reverses, etc. And he's a yak monster. So, and we didn't even talk about Kareem Hunt, who we both loved going to the draft 2 years ago, who led all of the NFL in rushing last year as a rookie. They're not even handing the ball to him until they're up 21-0. So, man, it's literally Madden offense right now. And the Chiefs, they're playing like a Big 12 team. They have to score 50 points a game to win. But the sick thing is they can do it. So I am perplexed. I think right now in a neutral field, I would take the Jags because I tend to lean towards stronger run games paired with awesome defenses. But I think the Chiefs right now, out the gate, either the first or second best team in the NFL, and it has a lot to do with the passing game and the weapons they have.
Yeah, you slow down one guy, you try to take one guy away, you've got 3 others that can do damage like crazy.
Seriously, just call 4 verts.
We didn't even talk about their offensive line hardly.
Yeah, but go ahead. Go ahead.
They're a good pass blocking offensive line. They're not a great run blocking offensive line. They're kind of the opposite of the Broncos, but Eric Fisher has become a pretty consistent left tackle for him. Not the top left tackle or anything like that. Mitch Morris at center has been very, very consistent. You got Mitchell Schwartz, one of the best right tackles in football. I was so angry when they got him for as cheap as they did.
Hey, we got Menelik Watson.
Oh, yay. No, like I said, they have an offensive line that fits their offense just perfect. And like I said, when you have a quarterback on a rookie deal, you can go out and spend some money, and they've surrounded him with a lot of young talent and aging talent and Sammy Watkins, stuff like that. But it is crazy some of the plays that they can run. And it's kind of funny.
Too.
Well, yeah, he's very, very creative. He's got the perfect quarterback and offensive playmakers to run exactly what he wants to do because he can scheme like crazy. Nothing is off limits with this offense. And there's just so many plays. Even the camera guys have trouble following. Where's the ball going?
I seriously had to watch the All-22 when I watched the Chiefs games because they are throwing the ball outside of the frame so often. Yeah. It's beautiful. It's fun to watch, but wow, it makes me envious because we got Case Keenum and this passing offense. We have weapons. That's not an issue. They're not really the same level weapons that the Chiefs have right now as far as vertical speed, and especially when you factor in Travis Kelce. But man, it's literally like they can go empty set in the backfield and just chuck it up with, one of the guys running a drag route or a curl just as a safety or maybe a flat. And they can do it because he's got the arm talent and the deep field accuracy and the weapons around him. And also, I got to say, we talked about the offensive line. Got to give a shout out to Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, Dr. MD. He wanted to have the MD on his jersey, and the NFL wouldn't give him because they're the no fun league. But he's also a really good guard as well. So yeah, that's right. It's a solid offensive line. They're not earth movers by any means, but they are doing a good job for what Patrick Mahomes needs, and they're giving him ample time as far as keeping the pocket clean and letting him chuck the ball down the field to the open guy and throw guys open. Not only the open guy, but throw guys open. So yeah, this will probably be the best offense the Broncos play all year.
Yep. If they can hold this offense under 30, I will be shocked. I'll be very, very impressed. That's for sure. But now let's move on to the other side where maybe we can feel a little bit better about the Broncos' chances in this game and maybe the Chiefs finally losing a game this season. We'll go to the defensive side of the ball, and it's not that it's completely void of talent. It's just that they are missing so many pieces at so many levels that it's hard for them to consistently stop teams. Yeah. You got your boy Chris Jones, who is he's actually gotten quite a few penalties this year. He keeps lining up in the neutral zone.
Yeah,
he wants
cheating.
To get that. Yeah, he's trying to cheat a little bit, so he's got to back off there a little bit. Alan Bailey has been their sack guy on the inside, and then Justin Houston. He's not the player he was a few years ago before the ACL injury, but he's still a pretty good player. They brought in Anthony Hitchens from Dallas, and he is a great. I wouldn't say great. He's good against the run.
He's great because he's a Hawkeye. How dare you?
There you go. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. But he can be taken advantage of in the pass game. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
And Reggie Ragland, another guy that was a second-round pick for Buffalo. Okay talent, nothing too special. D Ford was their first-round pick a few years ago. He's got speed off the edge, but not great against the run.
He's a Shane Ray clone.
Yeah, exactly.
Longer
and
arms.
Then you go to their secondary. And with Eric Berry out, this is a bad secondary.
Yeah.
Very bad secondary. Kendall Fuller's good, but the rest of them, not pretty. This is where you really hope that Case Keenum, if he's going to have a bounce back game, this is the one. I mean, there are opportunities galore for him to really take advantage. But the Broncos have the weapons to beat this defense pretty bad. Just a matter of can they actually take advantage of it. And again, if you're being held back by a quarterback, that's always that's the biggest piece. I mean, You look at Tom Brady and how often he's taken advantage of defenses with bad talent around him. But he's just so good, he knows how to manipulate the talent to look good. We're kind of in that opposite field right now. So it just, again, Case Keenum has to become Minnesota Case Keenum if the Broncos are going to stand a chance in this one.
I think the issue is the Broncos don't have Minnesota's defense, despite what the Bills did to him last week. So you can't really play that way. I mean, there's a chance that in the next 2 weeks he could eclipse his season-high interceptions from last year. Would not surprise me. Definitely next 3 weeks, although Talib's going to be out for the Rams game. So we can get rid of that rosy retrospection about trading him. That dude's been injured a lot. Now, that's for the Rams podcast here in a couple of weeks. But yeah, this KC defense, like I said, they're a Big 12 team. Really, they put up a crud ton of points, but they couldn't stop a nosebleed. The DVOA, Chiefs had the number 1 offense and the number 32 defense. Granted, some of that is playing into itself because the Chiefs are playing pretty much shell defense because they're up by so big pretty early way too early than they should be in the games. But Chiefs do have some talent. I think it's the defensive front that you need to worry about the most because that secondary without Eric Berry is just it's horrific. Chris Jones is probably their most talented player up front right now. He's definitely got flash ability, but he has been dealing with a groin injury, so that's worth watching and monitoring. Jarvis Jenkins also been injured behind him, and he's a decent backup defensive lineman. Xavier Williams is a nose tackle he was a undrafted rookie, but he was a player from Northern Iowa, so I definitely remember watching him. Not a great player, though. And Alan Bailey, 3rd-round pick back in I want to say 2011. He's a solid player there, but again, not incredible. Justin Houston used to be a really good pass rusher, but he's had injuries over the past few years, and I don't understand why they use him so much in coverage. Like when you got to pass, I understand it's a 3-4 base defense, but like that's your best pass rusher. He should be rushing at least 90% of the time. I feel like he's covering tight ends down the field a fair amount. Granted, again, they're up by a lot. You can kind of mix up the coverages and play it safe, but still, Justin Houston, that's a big test for Bulls still. Anthony Hitchens, you talked about him not being great in pass coverage. I would say that he's better in pass coverage than Reggie Ragland is. He's kind of Anthony Hitchens is their version of Brandon Marshall compared to Reggie Ragland being their version of Todd Davis. So if you're going to isolate anybody in space against running back and tight ends, if you can, Reggie Ragland, man, he's just a box thud guy. He might even be worse as far as pass coverage than Todd Davis is.
I guess I was more hinting at for what they paid him.
Oh yeah,
he's not worth the money that they paid him because he's not that 3-down player that you're just like, oh yeah, just plug him in. He'll do his job, do great at it, and we don't even have to worry about him. I've seen a lot of plays where he is 2-3 yards behind the running back chasing, hoping that the quarterback doesn't see the running back's wide open. So he's a great tackler. Like I said, he makes some great plays in the run game. I saw a couple big 3rd-and-1 plays where that guy just shot the gap, kind of like Todd Davis does for us, and really made a nice play in the backfield to stop a drive. So I'm not saying that he's a terrible talent. I'm just saying, again, just what they paid him. I wouldn't have paid a guy like him that much money.
Yeah, I agree with you, but the same can be said about Sammy Watkins. And it goes back to when you're paying a quarterback pennies on the dollar for the production that they're getting, you can spend money like this. I mean, what did the freaking Eagles do this offseason? They went out and got Michael Bennett. Just crud like that. It's very – there's the NFL. You're totally how you can build your team just absolutely changes when you're paying a rookie quarterback. So that's how the league is set up right now with the new collective bargaining agreement, and I think that'll probably continue until that changes. But yeah, the defense, it is not good. Kendall Fuller is a solid player, but honestly, I think he's more of a guy who should be kicked into nickel. Good trade by the Chiefs, though, because, gosh, if they didn't have him, they would be absolutely screwed in that back end. Ron Parker not playing great. I mean, they got safety Imani Watts. They have a lot of rookies and depth players who will hopefully for them, not for the Broncos, be filling in over the next couple seasons over Patrick Mahomes' rookie contract. But, yeah, it's not a great defense, and as long as you can keep that pass rush at bay, which isn't in a great pass rush, but I would say that's probably the best part of that team, the offense should be able to move the football, and it's going to have to, because if they go 3-and-out like they did against the Ravens, the Broncos could probably give up a 50-burger against this Chiefs passing attack and how bad the Broncos back seven has looked these first 3 weeks. And then special teams, finally, I got to talk about the kicker, not a big guy, Harrison Butker, that's whatever, but Dustin Colquitt, arguably one of the best punters in the league. He gives the Chiefs pretty good field position consistently as far as the defensive field position goes. And then D'Anthony Thomas, good kick returner, but Tyreek Hill, punt returner, yikes. We've seen it firsthand. Just yikes. That's
yeah.
I'll keep
please have your best game ever.
Yeah, just literally just kick it out of bounds. Like I don't care if it's at the 30. Honestly, like that. I mean, I do care a little bit, but you cannot outkick your coverage. It's got to be fair catches or touchbacks or downed within the 20 every time. Because if you give him space, it can be curtains, and that's a game changer instantly. Agreed.
I think he's returned 4 punts and averages 25 yards per punt return right now. Oh boy.
I know it's dirty, but man, like it's one of those fair catches. I'd just take the 15 yards and just clock him. No, I'd take it back. I can't condone that. But man, it's just like, gosh, dang it. It's really irritating. And it's easy to hate him too because of his past. I won't get into that, but
right.
Tyreek Hill is a public enemy number 1 in this game as far as I'm concerned.
Agreed. All right, well, let's look at just some stats about the Chiefs, just kind of give us a little general overall picture. I know it's only 3 games, so can't get too crazy. But just scores-wise, Game 1 versus the Chargers, 38-28. Game 2 versus the Steelers, they won 42-37. That was a pretty crazy game. Game 3 versus the 49ers, won 38-27. So that's crazy production through 3 games by their offense and crazy, terrible production by their defense. But just stats-wise, they are 7th in total offense, 7th in passing yards, 15th in rushing yards, 22nd in yards per attempt, and, of course, 1st in points.
I'm just looking at these scores. Like the Chargers, the Steelers are, I would argue, better than any team the Broncos have played so far. And they beat both of those teams by a good margin. I mean, the Steelers kind of came back. That was the Chiefs. Chiefs went ahead early, and then they went pretty conservative too early, which is kind of an issue with Andy Reid. You know, he doesn't keep the foot on the gas. But yikes. And unfortunately, you know, we saw Jimmy Garoppolo get the ACL injury last week. And the Chiefs were like, I feel like every single one of these games, they've been up like 21-7 or 28-10 very early. So
yeah, we're going to talk about that being one of the keys to the game of limiting what the Chiefs do in the first quarter.
You got to weather the storm.
You do. I would receive the kickoff if I was the Broncos. If I won the coin toss, I would receive.
I miss having a great defense.
I understand, man. But, again, now looking at their defensive stats, they are 32nd in total yards given up, 32nd in pass yards per game allowed, 18th in rush yards allowed, 30th in yards per rush. They give up 5.2 yards per carry. So our rookie running backs, this is a game to go eat. And then they're 30th in points per game allowed at 30.7. So, like you said earlier, their offense is great. Their defense is about one of the, if not the worst defense in football right now. And it's just they know they're going to get into shootouts every week. And right now, it's not even close. Like I said, they get up 21-0 or 28-10 or whatever, and it just kind of cruise from there. So looking at individual stats, you got Patrick Mahomes, who is completing 66.7% of his passes, 9.6 yards per attempt. He has 13 touchdowns to 0 interceptions, which is NFL record right now through 3 games. Not just for a first year starter. This is all-time
every single
in NFL.
Quarterback that's ever played. This is a record pace.
Now, I will say, watching some of his games, he should have 2 or 3 interceptions in that total. He had a lot of dropped interceptions through those first few games. So
not great secondaries.
Not great secondaries. But he did, especially the Chargers game. I saw on one drive they had 3 dropped interceptions just on one drive alone. Yeah. And then you got Kareem Hunt.
I just want to point out, I think it's really funny that in training camp the narrative was, wow, Case Keenum hasn't thrown a pick yet in training camp, and Patrick Mahomes is throwing picks like crazy. Folks, it's training camp. If there's any time to ever figure out what you can and can't get away with, that's it. That's when it doesn't matter. So if a guy's throwing, I mean, obviously if he's throwing 15 picks a practice, there's an issue. But if he's forcing things and trying to see what he can get away with and working some of those more challenging concepts down the field, that's when you need to do it. The time to protect the football is not in training camp. So as we can see, Case Keenum's on his way to being top 5 in the NFL interceptions, and Patrick Mahomes hasn't thrown one yet. So next year, if you see that narrative again, ignore it, because that does not matter.
Agreed. All right, well, running back Kareem Hunt, they don't use him as much as they obviously should, but he has 52 attempts for 168 yards, 3.2 yards per carry, and only 2 touchdowns on the season. Then getting to their receiving options, you got Tyreek Hill, who has 14 receptions, 310 yards, 22.1 yards per catch, 3 touchdowns, 8 plays of 20-plus yards. Then you got Travis Kelce, 16 receptions, 229 yards, 14.3 yards per catch, 2 touchdowns, and 4 plays of 20-plus yards. Sammy Watkins, 14 receptions, 176 yards, 12.6 yards per catch, 1 touchdown, and 2 plays over 20 yards. If you have noticed the theme, they like to have big plays down the field. And it's not even just big plays down the field. A lot of these guys, they're the yards after catch guys, the yak guys, as you call them. They are amazing at that. They just have such speed that if they get by one guy, it's done. So, I mean, Broncos are going to have to take some chances, but this could be one of those games where it could get out of hand real quick if they get a couple big plays early on. But I wanted to point out one really interesting stat that I think the Broncos can really take advantage of in this one. And it's the Chiefs are 25th in the league in time of possession. As great as their offense has been, they are a quick hit offense.
Oh, they score too fast. It must be so sad. They score too fast.
I agree, but I'm just saying when you come to the Denver Air and you have to have that defense on the field for 35 to 38 minutes of the game, you can definitely wear them out pretty quickly.
You got to play, and I always bring it back to the Hawks. I'm sorry, guys. But you got to play that Kirk Ferentz Iowa head coach style of game where Iowa will go up against a team like Penn State or Michigan or even Wisconsin, although not recently. But historically, Iowa goes up against a team that's obviously more talented than them. What do? They play bend, don't break. You cannot give up the big plays. And they just punch you in the mouth repeatedly with the run game and control it and wear you down and keep it to within one possession. Because if you keep it to within one possession, you got a chance. That's how unranked Iowa is able to beat like ranked teams like Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State because they keep it close. And then once it's that one possession game, anything can happen on that last drive.
Agreed. I completely agree with that. And we'll talk about that when we get to the coaching corner. But let's switch over here to some key matchups for this upcoming game here. And the very first one, I mean, it's just standing out there like crazy for me is Chris Harris and Bradley Roby versus Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins. I mean, you got 4.21 speed in Tyreek Hill, 4.43 speed in Sammy Watkins, and the Broncos are going to have to rely on these corners and say, hey, we're paying you guys big money. Go out there and do your job. I mean, I guess that's kind of where I'm at right now with this team is that they're going to have to take some chances. They're going to have to play some man coverage, get some pressure on Mahomes, and they're going to put a lot of pressure on Harris and Roby especially to go out there and do big things. Yeah.
I can't disagree, man. It's going to be interesting. Joe Woods, I understand, Bronco fans are frustrated with the off coverage and against like the Ravens, besides John Brown, who did have some big plays, which we said you watch out for John Brown. Michael Crabtree played better than I thought he would. I guess his injured riddled years the past couple seasons made him look worse than he still is. He played pretty well, but that big play stuff, after that week one where they gave up a few big plays, not just to the tight end, but you had, who was it? Tyler Lockett making big plays. Yeah, you can't do that. So this honestly is the best big play offense in football right now. And Bradley Roby and Chris Harris, it'd be awesome if we could play that bump and run still, press coverage and stuff. But gosh, it's such a risk. It's such a risk. So both Chris Harris and Bradley Roby, Chris Harris I think has been better than I would give him credit on second view. He's playing off coverage still, and I think he's biting on some double moves as well. Roby, like we talked about earlier, playing very soft. So, man, it's going to be tough, and I really worry about the third cornerback. We talk about Chris Harris and Bradley Roby, but Adam Jones practiced today, but he's definitely not the same guy he was. And then Isaac Yiadom, he's a little stiff, and he's still learning some of the things he can get away with and whatnot. And he got beat downfield by John Brown. Not surprised. John Brown's one of the better vertical receivers. And if they find the right matchup, Andy Reid will absolutely point it out in the headset. And that's, that could be a touchdown. So I am very concerned about the Broncos secondary versus the Chiefs deep passing game of the wide receivers. And we didn't even really talk about the safeties there. I mean, neither of the Broncos safeties right now. I don't even know if Joe Woods knows what he's doing with these safeties, or if Simmons is playing much worse than I thought he would, much worse than he did down the stretch last year. And Darian Stewart, same thing. They have Simmons playing in the box as like a dime backer. I don't know. And then Darian Stewart, he can't play that single high. So, gosh, it's not good. And then the line, I could go on forever. The back seven's really ticking me off. But it's not great. And speaking of Joe Woods, that's the next key matchup here. Joe Woods versus Andy Reid. I mean, this is for your job, Joe Woods. If the Broncos come out here and they get absolutely shredded by the Chiefs, even though it could be a personnel issue at this point, he's probably going to be the guy who has to fall on the sword, rightfully so with the first few games, because he was not calling good football games. But this is one where he's got to call a good game. Otherwise, it's over. I wouldn't be surprised if they replace him with the linebacker coach Herring or the defensive line coach Collar and Joe Woods is gone. I mean, when you have the best player in the secondary, the most veteran player in the secondary calling you out, and the head coach calling you out, like directly, you're on thin ice. And Andy Reid, he's not the best in the playoffs. He's not always the best with clock management, but the dude knows how to scheme an offense. And he's out there calling plays like he's got Brett Favre in Green Bay again. and it sucks. I will not lie. It just sucks to watch as a opposing fan. So we'll see. He's going to have to be smart, but he's also going to have to pick his spots, and he's going to have to be aggressive with Mahomes, because Mahomes in college, he could get erratic and he'd make dumb decisions. And if the Broncos team is going to keep up with the Chiefs in this game, they're going to have to take some chances and make some big plays on defense. And that includes taking the ball away and hitting the quarterback, and, just going to have to play the best game they played all season, and the best called game all season too.
Agreed. And it's crazy. Most of our key matchups here are defense versus their offense, just because, that's it. Is I expect our offense to do a few things. I don't expect them to go out there and light it up with 40 points or anything like that. But if the defense can just keep them in this game, the Broncos stand a chance. That's you just got to get enough hope going into that fourth quarter to believe that you have a chance, especially being at home.
One possession game
crowd behind you.
One possession game.
Yep, agreed. And so then, our third key matchup here is the linebackers and safeties going against Travis Kelce. And I guess I should include Kareem Hunt in there, because, a lot of teams love to use their running backs against us in the passing game. But it's just, again, they can't go out there and bite on these play action plays. Travis Kelce has the vertical threat ability to get behind them in a hurry. And that yards after catch ability, this is, as much as we've allowed tight ends to do so far, those guys compare nothing to Travis Kelce and what he could do against this defense. Last 3 games against the Broncos, he's had over 100 yards. I think the last 2 games he's had like 135 yards and 160 yards passing. So, he's been a problem. That's there's no easy way to get around that. And I just, especially, like I said, if those linebackers are biting, it's over. Why else target anywhere else? Just run the play action and just throw it over the top of the linebackers. It can get that simple. And so, big game for those guys. That whole back 7, really, for the Broncos. This is a really, really big game for them. And then our final key matchup that we really want to talk about here is just the Broncos offensive line versus the Chiefs front 7. They have some talent in that front 7 for the Chiefs. But again, when they're giving up 5.2 yards per carry, and they have 6 sacks on the season, but that's still not great considering the leads that they've had and just been able to pin their ears back and go after quarterbacks. It's not, I wouldn't call that good. If Von Miller was playing on that defense and had that offense scoring like that, the guy he might destroy the record for sacks in a season. Now, maybe with their secondary, I don't know, but still, there's an opportunity here. Like you said, you keep the game close, you run it down their throats, you run play action off of that. I would give Freeman and Lindsey as many carries as I possibly can, and just tell them we're gonna run you guys into the ground, because we just want to just wear them out, just pound it down their throats and just dominate the line of scrimmage. And this offensive line, they can absolutely do it. And these running backs, they can be explosive and get some nice plays, pick up the first downs, keep the clock going. And you can just shorten the game. Like you said, this is Iowa football. You shorten the game. You shorten the possessions that allow them to get a big lead. And again, this is why I'm receiving the kickoff if I win the coin toss, because I don't want to see their offense on the field. Go do a 7-minute drive down the field to start off the game. And if you can do that, you can really get them out of sync. They're not used to losing so far this year. They've been playing with big time leads. And so again, if you can just drive down the field, score that opening touchdown, take up a lot of clock, and it's going to be it's a David versus Goliath kind of thing. It's definitely not going to be an easy task to ask for, but the Broncos offensive line, this is going to be a big one for them. This is where they got to really show that they're the face of this offense.
Yeah. They got to control the flow of the game. They got to out-physical the Chiefs. They got to punch them in the mouth repeatedly. And then they got to take that momentum and give it to the defense and do the same thing to them. The Chiefs are going to get theirs, but if you can limit the amount of possessions and the field position and everything like that and grind out the game, I'm talking grind it out. It could be ugly, but you got to grind it out. And I think that's the only way that they can keep it close, because I'll be honest, Chiefs have a better team than the Broncos right now. On paper they do, but it's Monday Night Football in Denver. So if they can limit the amount of possessions that Patrick Mahomes has, limit the big plays and punch him in the mouth and be physical, I think they got a chance. But man, I think the Chiefs are a 5-point favorite right now, and Vegas is leaning more towards that way. The money line's leaning towards the Chiefs. So people don't believe in the Broncos. People really do believe in the Chiefs.
All right, well, we're going to move on to our final big segment of this episode, and it is called the Coaching Corner. And this is where we give you our game plan that we think could maybe help the Broncos pull out a big-time upset win here at home for this upcoming game. And really, I mean, they'd have the lead in the division because they'd be 2-0 in the division play and really in the driver's seat on a lot of things and making believers of a lot of people, you and me included. Because
totally
right
different
now,
season if they can win this game.
Oh,
seriously,
easily.
If they win this game, Broncos got a chance to go in the playoffs. I think if they lose this game, the season can get out of hand very quickly. I mean, you saw last week with comments and stuff, and I've heard from some people in the know about the locker room. Things were a little testy and whatnot, and I think they're afraid that it's going to go down the same path again. So this literally is the must-win game for the Broncos if they want to make the playoffs, and if Vance Joseph wants to be kept around, because I see it sliding quickly if they lose this game.
Agreed. So let's start with the Broncos offense versus the Chiefs defense. Weakness versus weakness here. Well, I guess you can't really say that. You can say that the last few years with our defense being great there. But anyway, Broncos offense has been, we'll kind of see back and forth. But the Chiefs defense, for sure, one of the worst in football. And especially their pass defense, like we said, has just been terrible. They play a lot of off coverage, and they allow your weapons to make plays. And they have a lot of miscommunications. They got a lot of new pieces in that secondary. And I mean, it's like I said, it's through the first few games. There's been guys that have been just wide open. That Chargers game, Bronco fans, if you want to feel better about Demaryius Thomas's drops in week 2, go watch that Chargers game, because they were dropping touchdowns. They were dropping wide open, huge plays, 50-yard plays down the field that should have really helped at least make that game a little bit more interesting.
I hurt my fantasy team. Phillip Rivers would have had like another 2 touchdowns and 100 yards.
Oh, easily. So, again, there's plays to be had against this secondary. And one of the best things that Keenum actually has to his strength is the quick pass game. Well, play to his strengths. I mean, that's what you got to do here. They've been trying to force him to do a few things that are a little bit more uncomfortable for him. But again, I mean, this is play to his strengths and play to the strengths of your offense, where you have weapons that can go and take a 5-yard pass and take it to the end zone. And I mean, it's pretty simple. And I know the Broncos are probably going to have some loaded boxes. I mean, that's what teams have done. They're daring Keenum to go out there and beat him. And so far, that hasn't really been the case. A little bit against Seattle, he went out there and made some nice plays. But beyond that, that's exactly what I would do if I was the opposing team. Challenge Keenum. And so he's got to go make those plays, make those quick throws, make the right read. That's something he's been struggling with lately. And force them to have to back off and then continue to pound it down their throats with the run game. Even on loaded boxes, I'm still running that football because I believe in my offensive line, and I believe in these running backs to go and find the little crease to make a nice big play.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I sent you that data a while back that the play action is not actually impacted by the success of the run game, but you still got to run the football and run it effectively. And that opens up Case Keenum's down the field ability, because he's not really a 7-step drop guy at all. I mean, chucking the ball down the field. And I understand it's kind of a chicken or the egg thing. Like Musgrave is calling the longer pass plays because teams are crowding the box, and those plays are there to have. It's just Case Keenum does not have. If you were grading his arm talent, it'd be a D- in terms of velocity. Arm strength would be one of the worst arms in terms of velocity in the league. Great touch, great placement, everything like that. He has anticipatory throws, but there's so many throws that he just doesn't have the arm talent to make. It's frustrating, but what can you do? He's the quarterback. So play action and the short passes let the off coverage, or the Chiefs playing off coverage. Call bubble screens, get the ball to the playmakers. I'm totally with you there. And then on the offensive line, Chris Jones, that's probably one of my favorite draft prospects in the past few years. Absolutely loved him at Mississippi State, and he's had some injuries to date, but man, he is an athletic talent, and he's coming. He has a groin injury, like mentioned earlier, but you can't let him beat you inside, because he could eat Keenum if he gets past the interior offensive line. Luckily, the interior offensive line of the Broncos has played pretty well. Got to clean up the penalties. Gosh, I think Paradis was the only guy who didn't have a penalty last week, but can't let Chris Jones beat you, and also you can't let Justin Houston beat you. Bulls had a bad game last week against a veteran. Well, look up. Here comes another one this week. Justin Houston isn't the level of veteran that Terrell Suggs is, but still, you got to give Bulls some help. And considering how lackadaisical the Chiefs defense is, if you have to keep a tight end over there to help Chit and get Bulls kind of, a little bit more confident in everything going forward, then you do that. Because right now I think obviously some of it's technical, but a lot of it's mental, I think, for Bulls too, because it spiraled out of control and he just didn't trust his technique. So get him going, run to his side earlier too, let him get physical out in front there and, help him out. Because if the Chiefs can beat you with the defense, it's Justin Houston making a strip sack or something like that. You just can't let it happen. Now the Broncos on defense and the Chiefs on offense, honestly, the matchup that's worth watching, the one that's going to sell tickets Monday night. Obviously, Denver's always sold out, but the one that's going to bring everybody's eyeballs to it. Everybody's going to want to see Patrick Mahomes and what he can do against this Broncos defense in Mile High, because Denver historically, recently at least, great defense and historically very hard to play at Mile High. But gosh, they need to be physical with the wide receivers in coverage. I know that you're not allowed to grab those guys and pass that 5-yard mark, but you know what? If they are running free, they are beating you. So hands in the face, at their hip, tugging and pulling. I want them whining. I want them throwing their hands in the air, crying to the refs. You got to be physical. You're not going to out-athlete them. It's just not happening. So you got to out-technique them and out-physical them, and that includes at the top of the routes, bump coverage, everything about it. You got to be physical on the outside, and that doesn't just include coverage too, because we talked about earlier the Chiefs have great yak monsters. Well, you know what? That means you got to tackle well in the open field, and we saw it against Seattle. Not really the Broncos' best strong suit. Darian Stewart not tackling well. Bradley Roby not tackling the best. Justin Simmons not tackling well. If you have that this week, it's a 70-yard touchdown. That it'll be at least one of those. So you got to open down, or you got to break down in space and make that play and not give them that extra, 4 yards because you didn't tackle them cleanly. You got to stop them on the spot. And also, I would not call a lot of zone coverage. Watching that the Chargers game, Chargers back end has been injured a lot, and they got Derwin James flying around back there. We'll talk about them when we play the Chargers. But they played a lot of zone. Did not work. Did not work at all. The man coverage was much better, even if it had to be some off man to slow down their speed. But they found the soft spots, and Andrew Reid was calling perfect zone breaking plays. So I think you got to go man. And I'm kind of back and forth on this. I'm curious what your stance will be. I think that the Broncos will probably play with kind of like they did with the Raiders, where it's that bend, don't break. The guy's going to be off. They're going to be playing a little softer with coverage, which is going to tick people off. I know it is, because historically when the Broncos have been a great defense, they've been playing that really physical press man. But A, I don't know if the Broncos have the horses in the back seven to do it, and B, the Chiefs' speed on the outside is just incredible. If you're playing that aggressive, all it takes is one play and it's a 70-yard touchdown. I mean, how many times am I going to say that? But it's really true. So I think probably a bend, don't break for the most part. You cannot let those guys get behind you and make Pat Mahomes nickel and dime you down the field. I mean, is he going to be patient enough to do that? I don't know. He's making big plays right now, but he's going to have to be patient and take what the defense gives him in that regard. You got to play really, really disciplined on the back end to do that, but I think that's the way to do it. And then you pick your spots when to be aggressive. Bring pressure, hit him, bump and run. You'll be really physical in those moments and hit Patrick Mahomes. You got to hit him and hit him again. Make sure your body weight doesn't fall on him, because gosh darn it, NFL. But this guy, Chiefs, the way uniform, they're going to be wearing white. If he doesn't go out looking like a Christmas tree, green, a Christmas at least, green and red all over, because he's got so many turf stains on his shirt, then the Broncos probably lose this game by 10 points. They got to hit him a lot, and he's not a big guy either. So I'm not saying snap him, not at all. He's a fun guy. He sounds like Kermit the Frog too, so it'd be perfect to make him green. It's not easy being green, as he would say, but you got to hit him a lot, and you got to show him that this is the NFL, and they got a good pass blocking offensive line. But if you're not hitting him, you're not doing your job. So pop Patrick Mahomes.
I actually agree with you on the bend, don't break, because there are throws where he will try to force it down the field. He will absolutely try to make the big play. He's always looking for the big play, and he doesn't check down a whole lot. I mean, and part of it is because his weapons are wide open down the field. Yeah. But again, I mean, make him be patient. Make him take what the defense gives him and just see if he can be that player. See if he can have that kind of patience, because a lot of rookies can't. especially when they have such a big arm, especially when they've been talked about like crazy for the first 3 weeks of the season with how great they're playing. And maybe just you can maybe get into his head. And I would also say one of the weaknesses of Patrick Mahomes is he's not always the most consistently accurate quarterback. Now, he'll make some throws that are incredible into tight windows, but he also has throws where he's throwing it 5 yards over the wide receiver's head on short throws. And so I do think if you cause him to have to dink and dunk, you're going to get him where he's going to make some inaccurate throws and struggle with some of that. So, I mean, the Broncos are going to have to be as disciplined as they've ever been this season. And that's not been a word that's been associated with the Broncos so far. So I question whether they could really do this. I mean, they did it against the Raiders. They did really well of bend, don't break. But I don't know.
19 points.
Right.
Raiders aren't great, but 19 points against the Chiefs, you win this game.
Oh, easily.
If you hold the Chiefs under 24, I think you win this game.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think their defense can hold many teams to under 24 points. They would need some crazy turnovers or something like that to keep a low-scoring game for them. But right now, the Broncos, that's going to be their key number. I'd say 24 points. If you can keep that, like you said, keep that offense to 24 points, Broncos stand a really good chance. And if you can, I think the other big thing here, I mean, this is not just looking at our offense versus their defense, but again, just that first quarter. That's where the Chiefs have absolutely destroyed teams. If you look at that second through fourth quarter, the games are much, much closer. Now, part of that's because the Chiefs take their foot off the gas pedal, but I still think if they aren't with that 21-point lead heading into the second quarter like they've been used to, maybe you get them talking on that sideline. Maybe you get them panicking a little bit. Maybe if it's a 7-7 game, they're kind of going, what the world's going on here? Why isn't the offense working? And you just get some of those young players. They got a lot of young talent on both sides of the ball. Just get them a little bit rattled. I mean, that's easier said than done for sure.
Yeah.
But there's some opportunities, especially being at home with this crowd. There's a good opportunity. So any of our listeners that are going to the game, you got to absolutely be loud and go crazy and get into Mahomes' head. But, I mean, he's done well on the road, so I can't really say that that's been a big issue for him. So this is a monstrous game. I mean, it's absolutely important for the Broncos to win this one, but of all the games to have to go out there and win, this is going to be, I don't know. I don't know. We'll get to our predictions here in just a second here, but this is the real deal. I'm just being honest here of what I'm seeing from the Chiefs. This is not a flash in the pan. I don't think Patrick Mahomes is going to keep at the pace that he's going, like you said, but they're still going to be an explosive offense that's going to be tough to contain. They're a top 5 offense, if not the top offense. I mean, I don't know if there's actually an offense out there that can compete with
the best
weapons.
passing offense, for sure.
Oh, easily, yeah.
We'll see how they look once the league has a little bit more film on Mahomes and the weather starts to get sloppy, because that's when big boy football starts to happen. You got to be able to run the football at least a little bit. Granted, the officiating has changed the game so much now that it's, you can play this 5 wide, and if you sneeze on the quarterback or the wide receiver, it's a 25-yard penalty and an automatic touchdown for the other team. Essentially, that's where we're getting. But yeah, they have great offense, great test. And like I said, the line is -5. And I just saw Ben Albright, probably you Bronco fans know him from Twitter. He said he just made his biggest bet in the last 2 years on the Chiefs at -5. So that's, yeah, I'm nervous for this game. I'll put it this way. We'll get to the predictions here. But first we need to tell you why I need to become a Mile High Huddle VIP subscriber. Mile High Huddle's approach to covering the Broncos isn't just about reporting the news, although we do pride ourselves in being able to relay you all the breaking news on the Broncos that's happening in real time. But what we like to focus on is breaking down the Broncos in depth. From all 22 film reviews, X's and O's outlooks, deep dives on player evaluation, and the NFL draft, we save our best and most in-depth content for our premium members, the VIP subscribers. To become a Mile High Huddle VIP and get access to 100% of our written analysis and VIP insider forums, just click on the green banner on the top of the website. Check the monthly or annual option and you'll be locked in. From there, you get access to everything we produce, which includes any insider information we pick up along the way. We work hard to bring you the best Broncos coverage and analysis on the web. We ask you for support. We ask you for your support by becoming a VIP subscriber. Pull the trigger, and you have my word, you will not be disappointed. All right, well, the last thing before we get out of here, prediction. And I picked the Broncos to lose last week by closer than what they actually lost by, and I'm going with the Chiefs here. I'm taking the Chiefs with the spread. I got the Chiefs putting up 34 points to the Broncos 20, and the Broncos falling to 2-2 on the season. Unfortunately, I'm a fan, but I'm an analyst first, so I can't do it. I got the Chiefs winning 34-20.
All right, I'm going to make it a little bit closer. I'm going to go with 35-28. Chiefs win this one.
Well, that's a loss is a loss, whether you lose by 100 or 1, but I'd rather keep it close. That's for sure. Do you see the Chiefs getting out early and then just kind of the game fading across, or do you think it'll be close? It's really that beginning part that's could make or break the game. Obviously, it's not how you start, it's how you finish, but if the Broncos get behind early, then it's, they let them control the pace of the game, and it's pretty much over.
I don't see them getting out too big. I don't see them doing the 21-0 lead like they have been. I see more of a like 14-7 kind of game at the end of the first quarter, but it's that third quarter where I just see the Broncos really kind of packing it in a little bit. I don't know. That's not the word I really want to use. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to give up, but I see that being where the talent of the Chiefs just takes over.
The Broncos need a little bit of luck, and they need one of those strip sacks for touchdowns that they had in the Super Bowl, and they can hopefully control the game. Although they don't have the defense that they had then. As we saw last week when the Broncos scored early, it did not mean anything. So we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. It'll be a fun game. It's always fun to see Monday Night Football games in Denver. But that's going to wrap up this week's episode of Building the Broncos. You can find Carl on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH and myself at Kendell MHH. Also, make sure you head over to Mile High Huddle, a new affiliate of 24/7 Sports and the CBS Sports Digital, to find ours and our co-writers' articles related to the Denver Broncos. Head on over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating and a comment. Your support can help us continue to bring you our Denver Bronco deep dives. We aren't just here to bring you the news, but an in-depth analysis each week from team building, game planning, and 365 days of covering the Denver Broncos. You can follow the Building the Broncos podcast and all our other great audio content by subscribing to the Huddle Up podcast on iTunes. And we actually have our own account now at BTB Football Pod, so make sure you follow that too. You can follow us on Twitter at MyHuddle or Huddle Up Pod. Again, please be sure to subscribe and rate us and reach out to us as we love interacting with fellow Bronco fans. For Carl Dumler, I'm Nick Kendell, wrapping up another episode of Building the Broncos podcast. We hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll see you next week after a win. Go Broncos.
You've been listening to Building the Broncos. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.